good Wednesday morning. I just said a quick good morning to Boomer. He is not in the studio as of right now. He is making his way into the studio for a dramatic entrance after that 3-overtime loss last night to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, there's going to be a lot to break down in that game, including the no-goal situation, the Heedle no-goal, as the referee was emphatic with his call. A no-goal is what he was screaming there. Of course, the 5-on-3 that allowed the Penguins to tie the game. We're going to get into all of it here. Also, how about the Mets sweeping a doubleheader against the Braves? The Yankees continue to roll a huge seventh inning. Aaron Judge making his case for more Scrajol, the two best records in baseball, the Mets and Yankees. Well, the Yankees own the best one, the Mets the second best one. So good stuff all around in baseball, not so much last night at the Garden. Good morning, Boomer. Did you sleep? How are you?
Yeah, how you doing there, G? I slept, of course, but I didn't sleep until after the game was over, and just totally ticked off at the way this whole thing ended. Should have never went into overtime in the first place. Even the guys on the national broadcast, as well as the guys on MSG, including Henrik and Valquette, all thought that was going to be a goal, and everybody was shocked that was not a goal, and it was clear that Capo Caco was getting pushed behind. I think it was by Brian Dumoulin.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was, it's just a total screw the Ranger thing. We're used to it. And the thing about it is, if you watch Capo Caco, his skates are facing the board. They're not facing the goaltender. He is trying to get in between the defender and the goaltender, and the defender pushes him right in the back. I don't know what the hell this freaking referee's thinking about. Well, I really don't. I mean,
that one angle is pretty clear. The last one that CBS Sports Network showed you, the one from behind the net, you can't really tell. The second angle that you saw there, it's clear where Dumoulin makes contact to send Capo Caco in that trajectory right into Casey DeSmith. Not this one, but the next one that you show, you could tell exactly where that contact was made.
I got to tell you, it was
right here. Boom, right there.
You could see it clear as day. And the thing about it is like we've seen plays like this, for years and years and years and years, and they never call, goaltender interference. If anything, then that should have been a penalty. Then
sure,
should have been a cross check in the back. I mean, so look at the end of the day, you play 6 periods of hockey. One team has one goal penalty called against it, and the other team has 4.
Right.
And then in the meantime, you're playing 5-on-3 in one situation where your 2 experienced defensemen are sitting in the penalty box while your young defensemen are out on the ice.
Well, you're trying to protect a 1-goal lead.
With a 5-on-3. So, there's a lot of good that I'd like to take out of this game, but there's also a lot of bad. And the bad is that the Rangers, this is the thing about Gallant, the coach. He's great. They let the guys do what they want, and it's fine. Most of the time, the players are good at what they do. They want their defensemen to be a little bit more aggressive, and sometimes they get overly aggressive. And the other thing, too, is that there's just way too much room. I mean, Sidney Crosby is skating out there like it's ice capades. This is the playoffs. You can't let one of the great players of all time just waltz around the ice and do whatever he wants. Because if you do, he's just going to continue to create more opportunities for his teammates like Jake Gensel, like we talked about yesterday.
Those first 2 goals,
that guy has been feeding off of Sidney Crosby, and good for him because I think Ryan Strome feeds off of Panarin. And it would be nice to get Panarin more involved. I'd like to see him shoot the puck more, get involved more, get to the middle of the ice more, and don't be on the outside so much. But look, at the end of the day, it's worth the price of the ticket to watch this. It's amazing. It's amazing hockey. There was 2 teams I thought that planted their flags last night. One was the Washington Capitals down in Florida, and the other one was the Pittsburgh Penguins here at Madison Square Garden. Look, I expect this thing to go 6 to 7 games.
Well, after last night. I would say that I was impressed with the Penguins' ability to not get run out of the building early because that's exactly what the Rangers were doing.
Well, that was on their goal.
God.
The first period was unbelievable.
You think the way that the Rangers played physically in that first period, Ryan Reeves running around, just drilling everybody. You had, Penguins that were leaving the ice one after another, limping, and just, it was like, oh my God. It was like everything that the Rangers needed to get to physically, and all the talk that we had about that, it sort of manifested itself in that first period, and then they're up 2-0. I'm like, man, they're going to coast to a victory here, and it just didn't work out that way.
You never coast to a victory in the NHL, man.
They were beating the hell out of them.
They were. They came out. They may have played their best period of all this year.
Yeah.
Last night, but their second period was they totally got steamrolled the other way. Give up 19 shots, I believe, in the second period, which is ridiculous. See, this is where Gallant, great for the regular season. I want Tortorella for the freaking playoffs because Tortorella is not going to allow 83 shots on goal. Holy crap. I mean, all right, the goalie's great. We understand that, but you can't
79 saves.
Throw 83 shots at him.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to block a puck?
Yeah.
Is anybody going to get in front of anybody? Is anybody going to actually stop their great goal scorers and their top line? I mean, God almighty. I mean, Sidney Crosby's out there like he's skating at Wallman Rink.
Well, that second goal, I mean, it was just like wide open. I mean, you couldn't even. I mean, Sid at that point had figured something out after that first period, and then those two back-to-back goals that he assisted upon with Gensel there was just. But I told you, it was classic him.
A lot of these guys' first foray into the playoffs. Thought the young guys at the third line, they played really well. They showed a lot of energy. Ryan Reeves was all over the place, hitting everybody. His line played well.
You needed more from your top line.
Yeah, but you know what you needed? You need more from your defense.
Yeah.
You can't allow. Look, I know they played 6 periods, but you can't allow 83 shots on goal. It's insane. You're going to kill this kid.
Yeah.
And you remember, he hasn't played that many games in a year that he has played this year. And, and he was remarkable. There were probably 10 high-scoring chances that could have easily been goals on both sides. Now, and the other thing, too, from the Rangers' perspective, they're playing against the backup goalie, Casey DeSmith. He ends up leaving, and then they bring in this Dominga character who ends up taking 16 shots, and they really weren't testing shots. They were outside shots, and if you don't have anybody in front of them, they're going to make a save. An NHL goalie is going to make those saves most of the time.
Did you hear an update? Because I know it's very clandestine with these NHL injuries, but did you hear anything of an update I was looking for this morning on Casey DeSmith and what his status is? Because that's obviously huge because that you'd be down to the Penguins' third-string goalie starting a game. No, I mean, it didn't matter in the third overtime and last night, but I mean, you're talking about starting the game that way. I mean, DeSmith was remarkable last night.
He was
awesome.
It was ridiculous in the beginning, and that's the thing. You got to bury. I mean, they should have had 5 goals in the first period as opposed to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I don't know. It's frustrating. It's an unbelievable game. I mean, like this is what you want. This is what you want to feel. It's just too bad that our team lost, but this thing's going to go 6 or 7 games. You know that. I mean, it's just too much talent and just too much experience. The experience against the young players for the Rangers showed itself again last night. That 5-on-3 goal was just way too easy. I mean, it's just like and poor Braden Schneider. He's the guy that's right in the middle of it back there, and he's not supposed to be out there.
I mean,
it's Nemeth takes two penalties last night. Trouba takes a boarding penalty, which I thought was borderline. I mean, you call that a borderline. I mean, a boarding penalty, and you make it a 5-on-3 in a playoff game. There's a lot of things to argue about, but there's a lot of things that I did like. That first period was unbelievable. Shesterkin was unbelievable, but they got to tighten things up. They got to be better defensively, and that's on the coach.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I from what I could tell from this Penguins team as opposed to some of these Cup-winning teams that they've had, is they're not as talented as what the Rangers are when the Rangers are playing their best game. There's experience there is what it is.
Wow, Sidney Crosby's ridiculous.
Well, right, but of course he is. He's the best player that I've ever seen in my lifetime. But I'm talking about, after that. I mean, they're a little bit older. Some of their defense pairings are just, you're looking for a hell of a lot more in their second and third defense pairings. They're not like stacked like they used to be. I mean, they're okay, but there's just so much experience there, and they've got the leader of all leaders, who's got, 4 Stanley Cups, and also Letang's got 4, and Malkin's got 4. I mean, that's really what this team is when they get their asses handed to them in that first period, they go into the locker room, they're like, okay, let's chill, let's relax, we'll come out, we've been here before, we've done it.
We got Sidney Crosby.
And we come out and you have you match their first period with an equally as good second period for the Penguins.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing, too, is the Ryan Lindgren hit on Richard Reichel. To me, it's a legal hit, and I'm like, first of all, they called a 5-minute penalty to start the thing, and then they looked at it and they said, okay, it's going to be a 2-minute penalty. But I'm like, that's a legal hit. Yeah. I mean, and I know that the hits are violent sometimes, and sometimes the referees call because they want to be, they want to be cautious and everything else like that. But I mean, the Rangers caught a couple breaks. They hit a couple posts and crossbars last night. The Penguins did. It's just. Again, it's young players that have to realize exactly what's going on, and too many turnovers. I know Jacob Trouba turned it over a couple times. Keandre Miller, who made a number of unbelievable plays last night, he turned it over a couple times. I mean, this is kind of like the looseness that they play with, which is fun during the regular season because they end up with over 100 points and they end up with home ice advantage. But it can be a losing kind of proposition against a team that is experienced. And when you see that pass that Crosby makes to Kensel on the just right around Ryan Lindgren, who's a really good player.
On the first goal you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an unbelievable play. And it's just too much room.
Yeah.
And you can't allow a player of that stature that much room. Somebody's got to be on him. And Gallant last night was rolling all 4 lines, which is fine. I like that. And they all had a chance to try to stop Crosby, and nobody really could. I mean, he was at the top of his game from the beginning of the second period on, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, and this was a team in the Penguins that essentially coasted the last 20 games. I mean, they really didn't seem like they cared. And talking to a buddy of mine out there, he said, I don't even think this team really cared about the last couple of weeks of the regular season, but this is who they are. That's one of those teams, like, we talked about the Nets flipping a switch. I mean, it's a little bit different when we have a core of, a dynasty core and flipping a switch in the postseason. That's sort of what they did.
And their goalie was unbelievable in the first. And really, both goalies were great for them.
I mean, Domingue comes out of nowhere. The guy's just sitting there as a spectator and comes out in the second overtime.
That pass that Crosby made to Gensel was ridiculous. Little back pass, saucer. Right on the stick of Gensel.
I mean, those two guys are
right in
mind readers. Yeah,
right in, unobstructed, right to Igor Shesterkin, and he gives up the goal. And it's not his fault because you got 2 defenders back there, and Ryan Lindgren got caught sleeping.
Yeah, I really cannot believe that they overturned that situation in that spot with the goalie interference in the playoffs. I was to sit there and look at it as long as they did with all the angles that we saw. And to come back with that was flat out shocking. I mean, it really
shocked
was.
Everybody. It shocked the guys on ESPN.
Yeah,
it shocked the guys, on MSG, Joe and Sam. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, this is a goal. The game's going to be over.
Well, I mean, Joe Micheletti was all over it. He goes, look at. I mean, even before we saw the replays, he was like Dumoulin, hit him in the back, and that's that. So it
was stunning, And then of course you have the next 2.5 periods, which were unbelievable. I mean, I think things kind of settled down a little bit. Teams were a little bit more cautious. There weren't as many 2-on-1s and things of that nature. The great goal by Kreider on the shorthanded, great pass by Mika. That's what we've been seeing all year from those guys. But, man, there's just too much room when Crosby's on the ice. I mean, you have got to pay attention to him, much like you'd have to pay attention to Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. It's one thing to say we're going to pay attention to him. It's another thing to actually try to pay attention to him.
Well, I mean,
this is so good.
This is where the adjustments happen in a playoff series. You go back and you watch those first couple of goals that got the Penguins right back in the game where the Rangers were in full control. I mean, and Gallant's got to look at that and say, all right, how did this happen? How can we stop this from happening again? You would hope.
I'll tell you, no structure. That's
no system.
It's a free wheel. And Molly told us. I asked her the question. And, that's the thought. I heard that about Gerard Gallant, that the players like playing for him because he's not all over them about certain things. And positioning and all that other crap. He lets them handle it, that he believes in, a hockey player's IQ and not being encumbered by some other sort of thing that he wants as a coach, but because he wants effort, and we see effort. It's not that there's no effort. There's plenty of effort, and that's why I said, it's worth the price of admission even when your team loses. But you got to somehow do something with Sidney Crosby, because if you don't, he's just going to he's just too good, and he's the best player on the ice. Yeah, you got to do something to stop him.
I'm going to take a page out of your book here when describing a hockey player, how Jake Gensel goes into the boards. He loses an edge, goes into the boards, essentially full speed with knee first.
Yes.
He's down on the ground. He gets up like a flamingo with his 1 foot in the air, skating around, writhing in pain, and then goes to the bench for 2 minutes. Comes back out, keeps playing, scores 2 goals in the second period, and plays the rest of the game.
Well, that's who they are.
If that was a baseball player, we wouldn't see him until August.
But that's Seriously. What the playoffs are. That's why they're so great. That's why 7-game series are a grind. And now for the Rangers, you gotta regroup. You gotta hope that Igor Shesterkin is now into this now, and I think he is. But you're asking him to do way, way too much. You gotta keep the puck away from the front of the net. I mean, and there were other times where, I felt like the Penguins, could have scored like 4 or 5 other times in and around the net. And, they're going to create their chances. There's no question about that. But it's just too much. I mean, 83 shots.
Yeah, 79 saves. Yeah. All right, it is Boomer and Gio just getting started on this Wednesday morning. Of course, we've got the Mets and Yankees. Jerry's going to tell you about that coming up in just a couple of minutes, in addition to all the post-game reaction in Game 1 of the Rangers and